The awakening of an empath does not arrive with fireworks. It does not come with a loud speech, a dramatic goodbye, or one clean moment you can point to and name. It begins quietly. It begins with a tiredness so deep that sleep cannot touch it. A tiredness in the bones, in the chest, in the mind. For years, you moved through life like a living antenna, picking up every signal in every room. You noticed the pause before someone spoke. You felt the tension in a friend's smile. You heard what was hidden behind "I'm fine." You became an expert at reading everyone else, and slowly, without even noticing, you forgot how to read yourself. That is where the story really starts. You were so busy understanding the feelings of others that your own feelings became a language you no longer spoke. And for a long time, you called this love. You called it care. You called it kindness. But much of it was weight, invisible weight, heavy, constant, and never truly yours to carry. You kept walking into emotional storms and calling it connection. You kept standing in chaos and calling it loyalty. You kept shrinking, adjusting, soothing, explaining, and absorbing until one day your spirit whispered something your mind could no longer ignore. This is too much. Stay with me because this is where everything begins to change. The moment an empath chooses peace is not the moment they stop loving people. It is the moment they stop losing themselves inside other people's pain. It is the moment they understand that closeness should not feel like drowning with a smile on your face. It should not feel like carrying a backpack full of bricks just to prove your heart is pure. Real connection does not crush you. Real connection does not ask you to bleed quietly while calling it devotion. That shift is deeper than people think. It is not just emotional. It is spiritual. It is mental. It is physical. It is the slow move from emotional survival into emotional control. Before this change, you lived on automatic mode. Someone felt bad and you rushed in. Someone was angry and your body tightened. Someone was distant and your mind began searching for what you did wrong. You were not just feeling your life. You were managing theirs. You became the fixer, the soft place to land, the one who could hold tension without breaking on the outside. But inside, you were breaking all the time. The awakening starts when you finally ask a different question. Not "how do I help them?" Not "how do I calm this down?" Not "how do I keep everyone okay?" But "what am I feeling right now?" That question sounds small. It is not small. It is a revolution. Because the second you ask it, a line appears where there used to be a blur. You begin to see the difference between caring and carrying, between witnessing pain and adopting it, between being loving and being consumed. And once you see that difference, you cannot unsee it. You realize that sensitivity was never meant to turn you into a sponge for every heavy mood in the room. It was meant to help you notice clearly, to choose wisely, to protect your peace with more precision, not less. And this is the part many people miss. Choosing peace does not make you cold. It makes you honest. It means you are finally done confusing suffering with depth. You stop believing that if a bond is exhausting, it must be important. You stop treating emotional chaos like proof of soul-level connection. And that changes everything because true connection is calm. It has room to breathe. It does not demand that you abandon yourself just to keep it alive. A big part of your exhaustion has always lived inside your nervous system. What you once called being nice was often a body stuck in alert mode. Think about it. If you spent years scanning faces, tones, silences, and mood changes, your brain learned one lesson very well. Stay ready. Stay careful. Stay ahead of the emotional weather. That kind of awareness may have looked gentle on the outside, but inside it was survival. Your body stayed prepared for tension before it even arrived. You became skilled at sensing the slightest emotional drop so you could jump in and fix it fast. If someone became upset, you felt responsible. If someone became cold, you searched for the cause. If someone seemed off, your system reacted like danger had entered the room. No wonder you are tired. You have been running an invisible marathon every day with no finish line and no medal waiting at the end. And because this pattern started early, it began to feel normal. Hyper-awareness became personality. Overgiving became identity. Self-neglect became routine. But the turning point comes when you stop measuring your worth by how fast you can respond to everyone else's emotional state. You begin asking better questions. You begin checking your own body, your own energy, your own truth. You begin noticing when a room feels heavy, not because you must fix it, but because maybe you should leave it. And yes, that feels strange at first. It may even feel selfish. But it is not selfish to stop treating yourself like emergency equipment for everyone around you. It is not selfish to let another adult carry the weight of their own emotions. And this is where the deeper healing starts, so listen carefully. Emotional generosity without self-protection is not noble. It is self-erasure in pretty clothes. Love should not require you to disappear. Support should not demand your nervous system as the price. You can care deeply and still step back. You can see someone hurting and still refuse to become the stretcher they collapse on. Empaths are often praised for loyalty, but loyalty without wisdom can become self-destruction. You are usually the one who stays after everyone else has left. The one who hears the excuse behind the behavior. The one who says they are hurting and uses that sentence to justify staying much longer than your spirit can handle. You forgive the silence. You forgive the disrespect. You forgive the same wound in a new outfit. You tell yourself that your patience means your heart is strong. But here is the truth, and it may sting a little. Staying in a sinking ship does not make you brave. It just makes you one more person going under. There is a difference between seeing the good in someone and volunteering to be damaged while waiting for that good to finally appear. Real emotional maturity is not shown by how much dysfunction you can survive. It is shown by how well you can protect your inner peace. If being loyal means betraying yourself, that is not loyalty anymore. That is captivity with a kind voice. It is a hostage situation wearing the mask of love. And once you see that, many relationships start to look different. You notice where you have become the emotional storage room for people who never ask how your soul is doing. You notice who calls only when they are in pieces. Who vents, unloads, spirals, and then disappears once they feel lighter, leaving you with the emotional bill. That is not closeness. That is imbalance. That is not a bond. That is a one-way road paved with your energy. You are not endless. You are not a bottomless well. You are a human being with limits, and those limits matter. When you keep pouring into others while your own cup stays empty, burnout is not a possibility. It is a promise. So redefining loyalty becomes necessary. Not cruel, not bitter. Necessary. It means you stop handing your time, heart, and focus to people who handle them carelessly. It means you begin to understand that healthy relationships are built on shared effort, not on your special ability to endure what should have ended long ago. This is why boundaries become life-changing. And no, a boundary is not a wall. It is not punishment. It is not coldness. It is not a weapon. A boundary is simply a clear instruction for how to love you without harming you. It says, this is where I end and you begin. It says, I can care about you without carrying you. It says, my peace matters too. At first, using boundaries can feel deeply uncomfortable. Saying, I need space. Saying, I cannot talk about this right now. Saying, that does not work for me. Even saying a simple, clean no can feel like you are doing something terrible. Guilt rises. Fear follows. Your mind may whisper that you are becoming difficult, selfish, or hard to love. But do not run from that feeling. That discomfort is not proof that you are wrong. It is proof that a new kind of strength is being built inside you. It is the sound of your self-respect waking up after years of silence. It is the feeling of your spine straightening after a lifetime of bending in half just to keep everyone comfortable. Read that again in your heart, because this part matters. When you had no boundaries, you often attracted people who loved access more than they loved you. People who thrived on your softness but never honored its cost. People who saw your open door and called it permission. But boundaries change the test. They reveal everything. The people who respect your limits will stay and adjust. The people who only came for free emotional labor will complain, pressure, guilt trip, and pull away. Let them. That reaction is information. Clean information. It tells you exactly who values your humanity and who only values your usefulness. And once you understand that, you stop calling every loss a tragedy. Some exits are protection. Some distance is medicine. Some endings are not failures at all. They are your life, finally refusing to keep paying for love with self-abandonment. Your body has been telling you the truth for a long time. Maybe your mind took longer to catch up. The headache after certain phone calls, the tight jaw around one specific person, the chest pressure before family gatherings, the sudden wave of exhaustion after time with someone dramatic, negative, or emotionally reckless. These are not random reactions. These are signals. Your body is not being dramatic. It is reporting. It is giving you honest data about what your spirit can no longer afford. When you stay around emotional chaos, your system does not just observe it from a safe distance. It joins the battle. Stress chemicals rise. Muscles tighten. Your breathing shifts. Your shoulders lift. Your mind stays half braced, half ready, even in quiet moments. Over time, this becomes your normal. Tight feels normal. Drained feels normal. Numb feels normal. But normal does not mean healthy. It only means familiar. And this is where your healing gets practical. You have to stop arguing with your body when it tells you something is off. If your stomach knots up around someone, pay attention. If a room makes your chest feel heavy, notice it. If you leave certain spaces feeling hollow, shaky, or strangely sad, do not talk yourself out of that truth. Your body often knows before your mind is ready to admit it. Your intuition does not always speak in words. Sometimes it speaks in fatigue, in tension, in restlessness, in the desire to leave early and never explain why. That is not weakness. That is wisdom traveling through the body. And once you learn to respect those signals, your entire life begins to change. Because then peace stops being an idea and starts becoming a practice. You make different choices. You stop calling overstimulation normal adult life. You stop forcing access where your soul is asking for distance. You stop trying to act strong while your body is begging for relief. This is not you becoming too sensitive. This is you becoming honest enough to stop living in places, patterns, and relationships that keep your nervous system locked in defense. To protect your peace, you have to protect your environment. There is no way around that. You cannot build inner calm while constantly placing yourself inside emotional war zones. That means some of your choices may begin to look boring, distant, or even selfish to people who benefited from your old version. A quiet night at home instead of another loud, draining gathering. A short reply instead of a 2-hour emotional rescue. A walk alone instead of one more conversation built on complaint, gossip, or crisis. But these choices are not selfish. They are regulation. They are repair. They are how your body learns safety again. Solitude becomes sacred in this stage. Not because you hate people, but because silence lets your system breathe. Away from the constant pressure of everyone else's needs, your heart rate can slow down. Your thoughts can settle. Your energy can return to you in small, steady waves. And something powerful happens there. You begin to hear yourself again. Your real feelings, your real opinions, your real needs, the ones that got buried under years of constant emotional noise. This is also the season where you stop being the peacemaker for everybody else. You stop standing between people just to soften their blows. You stop translating one adult to another adult. You stop carrying the emotional furniture in relationships that are not yours to hold together. And when you step back, something important becomes clear. By always stabilizing everyone else, you are often delaying their growth. You are cushioning consequences. You were acting as the shock absorber for patterns they needed to face themselves. So when you stop rescuing, two things happen. You finally get room to breathe, and they finally get a chance to meet themselves. That is not cruelty. That is truth. And in that truth, peace stops being rare. It starts becoming your home base. Not the absence of all conflict. Not a perfect life with no hard feelings. But something deeper. A strong inner sense that your body is no longer being offered to chaos as a sacrifice. That feeling is priceless. And once you taste it, you stop giving it away so easily. Then comes the quiet art of detachment. Not rage, not revenge, not a grand speech with perfect final lines. Real detachment is often much quieter than that. It is the moment you stop waiting for the apology that is never coming. The moment you stop hoping your pain will finally make sense to someone committed to misunderstanding it. The moment you stop trying to present your heart like evidence in a courtroom that was never interested in justice. This stage is powerful because it is clean. You realize that protecting your peace does not require a dramatic ending. Sometimes it simply requires a clear exit. You do not need to prove how hurt you were. You do not need to perform your boundaries until they are approved by the very people who ignored them. You do not need one final conversation that magically turns self-centered people into self-aware people. Sometimes the strongest move is silence. Sometimes the deepest closure is no longer offering your energy where it is mishandled. And if that sounds harsh, stay with me, because this is where many empaths get stuck. For years, you may have spent hours building the perfect text, the perfect explanation, the perfect final message. You thought if you could just find the right words, they would finally understand your pain, respect your limits, and see your heart clearly. But some people do understand. They just do not care enough to change. Others prefer you confused, over-explaining, guilty, and available because that version of you is easier to control. Once you see that, The need to explain starts to die. You understand that your energy is limited, precious, not something to spend trying to convince another person to treat you with basic decency. So you stop arguing. You stop defending. You stop chasing correct understanding from people invested in the wrong version of you. Their story about you becomes none of your business. Your peace becomes your business. And that shift, though quiet, is one of the strongest forms of inner power you will ever know. You begin making withdrawals instead of speeches. You shorten the phone calls. You stop rushing to reply. You decline the invitation that feels more like duty than desire. You stop being the first to reach out, the first to repair, the first to soothe. You are not making a scene. You are removing your fuel from systems that were running on your overgiving. Your absence becomes the boundary. Your silence becomes the answer. Your energy, once scattered across the chaos of others, begins to return home. And yes, there is grief in this part. Real grief, because even unhealthy connections can carry history, tenderness, memories, and hope. You may miss the person, or maybe you miss the version of them you kept believing in. You may grieve the future you imagined, the conversations you thought would happen, the care you kept waiting to receive. That grief is real, and it deserves respect. But growth means you feel that sadness without letting it drag you back into the fire. You stop confusing missing someone with needing them. You stop treating nostalgia like a sign from the universe. You stop letting loneliness rewrite the truth. This part takes courage. Quiet courage. The kind that does not need witnesses. The kind that chooses peace again and again, especially on the days when old patterns feel familiar and tempting. Your calm becomes proof. Proof that you no longer need anger as armor. Proof that strength does not always look loud. Sometimes strength looks like not replying, like leaving early, like choosing sleep over stress, like walking away with no final performance at all. And when you reach that place, you start to understand something important. Composure is power, not because it hides pain, but because it shows you are no longer ruled by other people's storms. You can feel deeply without drowning. You can care without collapsing. You can love without handing over the keys to your nervous system. That is not distance. That is mastery. That is what happens when an empath stops being everyone's emotional shelter and finally becomes a safe place for themselves. For a long time, your identity may have been built around being needed. Not just loved, needed. There is a difference. You became the listener at midnight, the calm one in the crisis, the mediator in the family drama, the emotional first responder in every friendship that was falling apart. You were useful, reliable, available. And because of that, you may have started to believe that usefulness was love, that being important meant being exhausted, that having value meant carrying weight. But that role, however noble it looked, was a cage. It kept you facing outward all the time. It kept your life centered around emergencies that were not yours. It made your own inner world feel distant, almost unreal. So when you finally stop rescuing, a strange silence appears. At first, that silence can feel uncomfortable, empty even. Without a crisis to solve, who are you? Without someone to save, what gives you purpose? Without being the helper, the healer, the steady one, what remains? And this is where the deeper journey begins. Because beneath all that overfunctioning, there is a self who has been waiting for your attention. A self with real desires, real creativity, real preferences, and real dreams that have nothing to do with managing the emotions of others. In that silence, you begin to meet them. The part of you that wants to create instead of repair. The part of you that wants to rest without guilt. The part of you that wants a life defined by joy, not just service. This is the moment you stop changing shape to match every room. You stop becoming whatever will keep the peace. You stop smoothing yourself down until you fit into other people's expectations. Harmony at the cost of authenticity is not peace. It is performance. And you are getting too honest to keep performing. So you begin to say what you really like, what you really do not like, what you want, what you are no longer willing to tolerate. You stop filtering every choice through how will this affect them, and start asking, is this true for me? That question will rebuild your life from the inside out. As you grow into that truer self, your relationships begin to change too, naturally, quietly, almost like gravity. When you are no longer drawn to intensity, the intense people lose their pull. When you stop offering rescue, people looking for a fixer become less interested. When you stop over-explaining, over-giving, and over-functioning, the ones who are feeding on your energy often drift away on their own. Let them drift. You are not losing your value. You are losing what was never aligned. And what begins to replace it is different, calmer, cleaner, more equal. You start connecting with people who take responsibility for their own emotions. People who do not need a hero, only honesty. People who can stand beside you without asking you to carry them. These relationships feel different in the body. Silence feels safe, not tense. Space is not punishment. Care is mutual. You are appreciated not for how much you can absorb, but for who you are when you are simply being yourself. That is the upgrade. That is the new standard. And the beautiful thing is this: once you stop paying for belonging with self-betrayal, the whole pattern changes. You no longer hand out unlimited access just because someone asks for it. You no longer confuse intensity with intimacy. You no longer call emotional hunger love. You become more selective, yes, but also more open in the right ways. Because real closeness no longer feels like a burden to survive. It feels like a place where your heart can sit down. If this is speaking to you, then you already know the truth. You are not here to spend your whole life being the background support in everyone else's story. You are not here to become smaller so others can stay comfortable. You are not here to prove your goodness by how much pain you can take. You are here to live, to feel, to create, to love with wisdom, to protect your peace like it matters because it does. And maybe more than ever, you are here to remember that empathy is a gift, but only when it is guided by self-respect. In the end, the empath who chooses peace is not abandoning love. They are finally learning the shape of healthy love. A love that does not require panic. A love that does not feed on guilt. A love that does not ask you to betray your body, silence your truth, or disappear to keep the bond alive. You stop proving your heart through exhaustion. You stop calling chaos chemistry. You stop treating your nervous system like a public resource. And little by little, your life becomes lighter, clearer, more your own. You begin to trust calm. You begin to choose what protects your spirit even when no one claps for it. You begin to understand that peace is not something you earn after enough suffering. It is something you are allowed to choose now, right now, without apology, without over-explaining, without waiting for permission. So if you have been feeling that deep tiredness, that quiet ache, that sense that you cannot keep carrying everyone the same way anymore, listen to it. That is not you failing. That is your soul asking for a new way to live. A wiser way, a steadier way. A way where your sensitivity is no longer used against you, but guided with care. A way where your heart stays open, but your energy is no longer unguarded. A way where peace becomes your standard, not your reward. And once that shift happens, once you truly choose inner safety over emotional chaos, everything starts to rearrange. Your habits, your relationships, your body, your voice, your future. You become softer in the right ways and stronger in the important ones. You stop needing to be understood by everyone. You stop needing to fix what is not yours. You stop chasing people who only value your labor. And what remains is something solid, grounded, and deeply real. A person who finally knows that their greatest gift to the world is not endless sacrifice, but a whole, honest, peaceful presence that no longer abandons itself.